Hello and welcome to this session brought to you by the Academy of Practical Accounts in conjunction with your institution. In this session, we'll look at the recording of a creditor's invoice and a payment made to them. Now, a creditor is a supplier to the business on credit. They are not paid immediately, they are paid later. Now, in this session, we'll look at the ability to identify and record an invoice, plus a payment voucher or payment receipt. We'll look briefly at the difference between the two and then trace their double entry and identify the affected reports. Now below here we've got an invoice. It's headed receipt or invoice basically because the names the names are actually interchanged, although what matters and creates a difference is that it's either paid or not paid. So it's stated below here that this is on credit. Now remember, we have not looked at source documents per se because most business owners do understand these documents. Let me just plug in this. Okay, so what we have here is an invoice because it wasn't paid immediately. Now this document has got VAT, although we only copy the total amount simply because the business is not registered for VAT. It's not registered for VAT because its turnover is less than 82,000. In that those are the UK requirements, unless it's a voluntary registration. So now we're going to see how to record this invoice on our mobile device. Now the form to use is in the creditors module. Now this one, okay, let me explain this. This is an overhead invoice. It's an overhead expense, rather an indirect expense. But remember, because the turnover of the business is less than 82,000, it's allowed that all expenses are recorded onto account 25. And account 25 is in the category of direct expenses. Let's have a quick search for that. Can we trace the chart of accounts? No, we can't trace it here. We can't trace it here unless we open the file. Let's see if we can trace it very quickly. We need the chart of accounts in this file. Let's find the chart of accounts very quickly. Yes, we are on track. Now we are saying, okay, let's remove this split. Let's remove the split. Remove the split. Okay, we are saying that all expenses are being recorded onto this account, and yet conventionally this account is part of the cost of sales, and therefore it won't be accessible if we use the overhead invoice form. So in that case, we need to use the cost of sales invoice form because this account 25 is among the cost of sales. So we're going to use a cost of sales invoice form. Now we need to rotate our device. There we are. Now this is a T9/T2. Remember, the business is not registered for VAT. That's why this facility is not being used. If it was registered for VAT, in UK standard VAT is 20% and reduced VAT is 5%. But otherwise, we're recording it without VAT. Now let's see what happens if we select a VAT option. We get more rows for recording. This is purchases, VAT, and so on and so forth. Let's save ourselves that hassle. Let's go back to T9/T2 where there is no VAT. All right. Now, what about the date on the document? Let's confirm that. The date on the document is the 27th of March. All right, 27th of March. Let's click on the drop down. Click on the drop down 27th, that one, and then click set. Okay, 27th of March. Now, Telephone Limited is pre-selected here because it's the only creditor account we have in the system, and then it's going to the all expenses account apparently. All right, because it's the first account in on the list. If the accounts are arranged alphabetically, it's the first one. So let's close that. And now we need the net amount. The net amount is going to be the same as the gross amount because the business is not registered for VAT. Let's drag this. Okay, so what we're going to get from that document is £30. That is 30. Click on the device. So this amount is going to be credited to the telephone account and debited to the all expenses account. And this credit entry to the individual credit account is going to be duplicated and credited to the creditor's control account. So the bottom and top entries complete the double entry. Anyway, you don't need to do that because the software does it for you. Now the narration here is going to be mobile bill. Mobile bill. All right, and the document number is 13. Now, for some reason, some forms that are not regularly used don't generate the document numbers. So we just need to bear with that. It's just the first five forms that generate the document numbers. And remember, it's month 12. So from the look of things, we should be ready to save. All is right. So we click save. So the invoice has been recorded. And remember, there's a guide on each of the recording forms. Now, the next thing to record is the payment. The payment to the supplier. And in this case, we're not using a payment voucher, but we are using an invoice, actually a receipt received from Telephone Limited. There is a small difference between a voucher. And let's see if we can trace this voucher here. Voucher, let's scroll up. Yes, this is a payment voucher. Okay, it was filled in. This is a document really. Now, how do we want to restrict our display to, okay, let's expand this. Okay, we just want to look at this payment voucher. Okay, now this payment voucher is prepared by the business when it's paying out money. In this case, the business was paying the owner. There should be some documentation, otherwise it's difficult to follow up. And of course, for accountability purposes, there should be a document to support every payment that was made. So this is a payment voucher prepared by the business. And on the side here, we've got a receipt received from Telephone Limited. For organized businesses, we would have both. Now, in this case, we're going to use that receipt received from Telephone Limited. Now, let's get out of here and get to the recording form. So we get to creditors, and we're looking for a form that records a trade creditor payment. So when a trade creditor is paid, we use form number 33. Now, the date is 31st. Let's start with the date. That is 31st. We click set. And then Telephone Limited is pre-selected because it's the only creditor account on the system. And then which is the paying account. This is a debit card. Debit card takes money from the bank account, and it's also pre-selected. It's the first account on this list alphabetically. It's the first account on this list alphabetically. We've got C, and that's it. We've got B and C. So we go with bank 1, which is pre-selected, and the amount is 28. So now this 28 here, okay? 28 was paid, and apparently this 28 is the amount brought forward. They're paying the old debt, not the new transaction. And then the narration is telephone paid. Telephone Limited paid. Brief explanation. Let's scroll to the right. Okay, now the document number. The document number is going to be 14. We're copying the number from there. And then, assuming that document did not have a number, then we would look at our filing system, because in the simplified filing system, we are having all the documents on a single file just to create an identity and a sequence plus a follow-up. Okay, so this transaction is going to be matched to document number 14. If anybody needs to verify, you go to the documents file, find document number 14, and that's it. We are now ready to save. Okay, so we click the save button, and that's it. Now we can close this, and the next thing is to trace the double entry. So we come to miscellaneous. Now we need to rotate our device. Okay, this one gives us access to more. We can see more. So we come to the periodic tasks reports, and then we scroll down to PP5. That's the general ledger. We shall be able to see the double entry, and that's month 12. So we scroll down to month 12, and these are the transactions. Now we need to pinch. Basically, for this latest transaction, we're looking for the control account. Okay, of course, the bank account is also affected by the 28, and then the all expenses account is affected by the 30. Now let's first look at the 30. That 30 was debited to the all expenses account. Let's expand a little bit. Yep, the 30 was debited to the all expenses account, document number 13. Apparently, it's also transaction number 13. And then the credit entry is made on the creditor's control account. That is the 30. Okay, now the lower the document for paying, that is the receipt, is document number 14. Now, this 14, this is a payment. Okay, now the creditor's control account received the 28, and the 28 came from the bank account. Where is our bank account? There it is. So that's where the 28 comes from, and that is the double entry traced. And then finally, we need to look at the affected reports. Now remember, this is supposed to be cumulative. This is supposed to be cumulative. So for all the 14 transactions recorded so far, all the reports in yellow are affected. If you want to verify, please just go to your mini year-end reports checklist and access them. They are all affected to date. Now you realize that E is not affected because the business doesn't compute wages, it doesn't have employees. It's only the owner who is self-employed. They don't have employees, so these reports are blank. And then because we're using the cash accounting system, we don't have fixed assets. The only asset bought was a laptop, and because it's going to be used for only 2 years, it was recorded as an expense. So we've got nothing in the fixed assets area. Let's go up here. Stock accounts. This one has got the opening balance brought forward. The bank reports have been a bit busy. Cash, yes, quite busy. Trade creditors. This is the first time we are accessing the credit creditors reports, and we're going to look at these 3 reports. And of course, the rest are also affected on a cumulative basis. So we start with the reports in the Q section. Go back to our device, and we're going to the starting point, and here we go to module number 2. We find the mini year-end reports checklist. So we're going to access reports in the Q section, and we'll start with the creditor summary and reconciliation. Okay, now this is the summary and reconciliation. Now people normally spend time to reconcile. This is automated. This is automated. Hope you can see clearly. Now, what it says is that we have an opening balance of 28. You remember this was recorded among the opening balances. And we recorded a payment of 28 using the debit card. And then this credit entry came from the invoice. Now, the closing balance on this summary and the creditor's control account is 30. And then the sum of outstanding creditors is also 30. Okay, this one is extracted from below. And there is no difference. We are saying that all entries made on the creditor's control account do appear in the creditor's ledger. Now let's get quickly to the detailed control account. Let's see the individual transactions. Apparently it's only 3 transactions. That's the opening balance. We've got the invoice and the payment, and that's it. Now let's go back to our summary here, and then from here we're going to the creditor's ledger. The creditor's ledger, and this is it. This is the cumulative creditor's ledger. It's got only one account, and that's the one belonging to Telephone Limited. And that's about it. We have had a look at the other reports. Well, that brings us to the end of this session, where we looked at the recording of a creditor's invoice and their payment. In case of any questions, please send us an email or find us on Skype at Accounts Coaching or Moses at DIY Tax Return. Thank you.